Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor here with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim podcast. And I got to tell you, I am uniquely excited for today's show because I remember years ago, reading a book. And in that book, I found a quote. And that quote said, "For the vast majority of people, being overweight is not caused by how much they eat, but by what they eat." The idea that people get heavy because they consume a high volume of food is a myth. In fact, the "in fact" is not there. I added that. In fact, eating large amounts of the right food is your key to success. And those words, written by today's guest, who is the wildly successful New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, really was formative in not only my life, but also my professional work. So today, I'm so excited to welcome the author of the wildly successful and inspirational book, Eat to Live, as well as Super Immunity, as well as The End of Diabetes, Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Jonathan. Great to be here and be part of this today.
Well, Dr. Fuhrman, I wanted to have you on the show because, one, I'm a little starstruck because I'm a fan of your work, but really the seminal point that I have derived from your work and that I think is so critical is this idea of what I call therapeutic doses of nutrition and how eating more but smarter is actually the key to health, which is so different than just saying eat less of a traditional American diet. Is it not?
Well, that's exactly right. Telling people to eat less food and cut back on calories and weigh their food is essentially a formula for failure. And number two, as people fail repeatedly, the process of losing weight and gaining it back again and losing weight and gaining it back again actually changes the structure of the fat stored in the body and makes losing weight in the future more difficult, and actually takes out certain fatty acids from the fat storage and puts back more saturated fat in the body and the fat that's stored in the body, increasing the risk of both heart disease and diabetes and cancer even. So it's actually, not only is it doesn't work, it's actually dangerous to follow conventional methods.
And Dr. Fuhrman, the key then, the alternative is really, instead of being told to eat less, we need to eat more, but not just of Twinkies and ding dongs and ho-hos, but more of the most nutrient-dense foods we can find, correct?
Right. We have to restore the degree of nutritional normalcy, reduce the oxidative stress, free radicals, advanced glycation end products called AGEs. In other words, I'm giving examples of the toxins that build up in our tissues. And as those toxins build up in our tissues and cause inflammation, the body, stores fat, can't get rid of its fat, and it drives an addictive drive to overeat. And you can't control your appetite, and you can't control your weight unless you get healthier, lower the levels of free radicals, and advanced glycation end products through eating a higher amount of high nutrient foods that allows the body to be permeated with antioxidants and phytochemicals and certain nutritive factors that normalize tissue and actually normalize fat storage, so you're not going to become overweight either. In other words, it's almost impossible to become overweight when you're eating a diet predominantly of nutrient-rich foods, because obviously it's not normal to store the degree of fat. It's almost pathologic. It's almost like a tumor on the body that's the result of eating improperly that allows people to get so overweight.
Well, and that is such a profound distinction, Dr. Fuhrman, of this idea of, one, we need to like a slim body ensues. Like, first, you must have a healthy body, and a healthy body will naturally pursue a slim body. That is such a paradigm shift from the traditional. It's almost we're told to fight our body, like to rip nutrition and calories out of it and to deprive it of things. And what we're talking about here is fundamentally the opposite. It's an uplifting, it's a healing, correct?
Well, that's right. I mean, when you think about it, is that the American diet is dramatically nutritionally deficient causing an entire population of sickly people. So when you look at a normal person in America, when you do scientific studies on normal people, they're not normal people. We're studying a population of sick people that are nutritionally deprived. In other words, what's a normal white blood cell count on a blood test for your doctor between 5 and 10? That's not normal. That's average range of sick people go between a 5 and 10. A healthy person gets a white blood cell count closer to 3, outside of the normal range. I can give you one example after another, but they're studying sick people who don't eat properly. Or the Americans, they consider 66% of Americans overweight. That's because they just determined that a BMI of 25 and above is overweight, and it has to be overweight to be above 25. Well, all long-lived societies have BMIs below 22. 85% of our population is overweight, not 66%. That's just an artificially determined number to make us all not look as overweight as we are. The point is that nobody has to have heart attacks and strokes. You don't have to get cancer. We have a population where everybody in America, over 90% of people, get put on blood pressure medication, cholesterol-lowering drugs, diabetic drugs by the age of 60. That half of our population of all ages is taking drugs. By the time you're over the age of 60, you're taking multiple drugs. Everybody in America develops heart disease, dementia, strokes, overweightness. It's totally unnatural. It's totally avoidable. And people think it's normal, natural, and even genetic because that's what they're told and because everybody else is sick like them.
Dr. Fuhrman, what do we do about this? I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said this. It seems like there's an inevitability. Like it's just a matter of time until you get these diseases. But these diseases have clear causes, and these diseases, it's been demonstrated repeatedly through your work and through other people's work that when we have a healthy body, the body, just like a healthy body, is less likely to get the flu or to get any other kind of illness because it's healthy. It is also dramatically less likely to get these diseases. So how do we change this model that is so broken?
Well, obviously, you're not going to get the model change from the powers that be. In other words, there's too much economic power, political, social, and economic power. And also, besides the fact that the drug industry and the food industry and controls the airways and the government and through lobbyists and advertisers controls the minds of, besides the fact that it's a difficult enemy and Monsanto and it's a difficult, road to hoe against all that. The major issue here is that unhealthy foods are powerfully addicting, and it takes over people's ability to make logical and rational decisions because now their decision-making about what food to eat is based on feelings and emotions that are protected by the primitive brain's desire to continue the foods they're addicted to. So so most people they've lost their keys to the bank. They can't even think about this rationally because they're just trying to protect their addiction any way they can. Oh, I don't like vegetables, or where do you, they'll be thinking of all kinds of excuses. I travel too much. I'm on the road. It's too difficult. I don't have time. It's too expensive. I get weak if I eat this way. They come up with one excuse after the other because they're addicts trying to maintain their diet style. And most diet books appeal to the masses who want to hear something positive about maintaining their addiction. So the point is that we have to re-educate society, and it's happening. I mean, luckily I had the opportunity to get my own television show on PBS, and literally it's been such a blessing. I've literally was thousands, maybe even millions, who know of this work now. Obviously I've sold more than 1 million books, so it has to be millions that know of it if they've read the book they purchased. But in any case, the point is it's growing. It's definitely growing, but it's not, obviously it's not going to take over all of America because there's the forces of, every hospital, every doctor, every drug, all the drugs out there, all the restaurants and fast food restaurants and the American Heart Association, the American Diabetic Association, the American Cancer Society, they're funded by all the, by the food industry, by Coca-Cola, by the drug industries. It's very hard for them to come out with an ideal plan either. So, I'm saying that I'm trying to give people straight science without bias, with no commercial influences. And when you do so, it hits a chord in people and it gives people the ability to say, you know what? It's not easy, but it's worth it not to ever have to worry about having a heart attack. And I'm making the radical claim. I actually took this statement a step further than you. You said reduce the risk of these diseases significantly, and I made a more radical statement. I'm saying that nobody has to have a heart attack or a stroke. that we can really knock it out, 99%. Of course, there's going to be the rare, person with some, predetermined genetic issue. But the point is that heart disease and strokes should be a very, very rare occurrence. Not having half our population die of that stuff. We're talking about nearly wiping this stuff out. So, so I'm saying that the nutritional excellence has tremendous power, and the idea, this myth that, you need willpower of steel, and that you have to live your life in deprivation to live life free of disease and at a healthy weight is also a complete ridiculous myth. Your body likes what you get used to. Healthy foods can be made and prepared to taste delicious and gourmet. You don't lose any pleasure in life at all. It's just a knowledge-based program. When you have the knowledge, you have a better life. You enjoy food more. You get more pleasure out of life. You eat as much as you want. You don't want to really stuff yourself to discomfort, and you protect yourself against diseases, and you're not overweight.
It really is a win-win-win. I often tell people, Dr. Fuhrman, building off what you just said, is that if you're pursuing health and it's anything less than a delight, the process itself is anything less than a delight, you might be headed down the wrong track, because you might be down that track of just eating less and exercising more and not focusing on quality, but rather focusing on just the reduction of quantity, which, again, it's not enough to just take your hand off the burning stove. You need to then put the hand in a state where it can heal itself, and that's where the nutritional density becomes so important, right?
Absolutely. And of course, also, I'm not going to take away the fact that people, that the conventional diet, so high in sugar and so high in salt and other things like that, deadens taste buds. And when the initial phases of changing to eating natural foods, people say, oh, strawberry doesn't taste good, and, vegetables have no, this has no flavor, and, garlic and onion, and, but the point is that taste gets retrained. It does take a little time to retrain your taste buds, but after your taste buds, so I'm not claiming that there's not any temporary loss of pleasure. But once you've retrained your taste buds and gotten your sensitivity of your taste stronger, and it's improving your health of your taste, actually. And you also learn how to prepare foods this way, then there is absolutely no loss of pleasure, and actually an increase in pleasure and enjoyment of food. But people got to give it a chance, is the point I'm making.
Well, and Dr. Fuhrman, what are we to do also? We live in a culture which can try to be very, very black and white. For example, there is a what I consider to be a false dichotomy sometimes when people say plant foods are healthy and animal foods are unhealthy. Because even from a nutrient density perspective, right, like if we were to look at refined grains versus a grass-fed beef liver with no hormones, no nothing, certainly there are really nutrient-dense sources of energy and nutrition, both deriving from the animal kingdom as well as the plant kingdom. And there are horrible sources of nutrition and calories from both the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. Like if you've got your dwarf GMO, Monsanto-ized corn, versus a wild-caught Alaskan salmon. What are your thoughts on this? What is sometimes posed as a dichotomy, like all plants are healthy, all animals are unhealthy?
Well, it's this. Now you're getting into a complicated scientific issue. So it's complicated. We can deal with some of those complications, discuss some of those issues right here and now. And a few of them are this: the American diet right now is 26% of calories from animal products and 62% of calories from processed food, which is really just junk food. I don't even call it food. It's but it includes white rice and white bread and oils and sugar and cookies and crackers and rice cakes and breakfast bars and chips and pretzels and
edible products,
cereals.
Edible products, not food.
Right. Yeah. So so that's 62%. Now, obviously, that 62% of junk should be as low as possible, and the 26% of calories from animal products is too high to allow people to live a life free of heart disease and cancer. So we have to reduce animal products significantly. And we can discuss what level of animal product consumption would still not raise the hormones that increase cellular replication and growth that promote cancer to make the eating animal products safe. We can discuss that. But right now, Americans eat more than double the amount of animal products. And switching to a healthier or more naturally raised animal product isn't going to solve that issue, because a diet that's too high in high biological protein raises a hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which is the major hormone producing a high rate of breast cancer and prostate cancer. So it's not really whether the hormones are fed the animals. It's the hormones we produce in response to our body into eating all that animal products. So first of all, I do want people to eat less animal products. I'm not saying they should have to eliminate it. And we have to recognize that the nutrients that are lacking in the American diet that's causing all these problems are predominantly the antioxidants and phytochemicals that are found in plant foods that are not found in animal products anyway. So when you knock out processed foods to a very low level or eliminate them, and you reduce animal products significantly, then you enable space in the diet to eat all the plant foods and all the natural high phytochemical and high micronutrient plant foods we need to eat. So even the best raised and the cleanest animal products do not contain those antioxidants and phytochemicals. So we're talking here about a diet like if I could say, are you eating a big salad every day with red onion and tomato on top? And you're making that salad the main dish at one of the meals. Are you eating a big double-sized portion of lightly steamed greens like broccoli, asparagus, artichoke, string beans every day? Are you eating at least half a cup, but preferably at least a cup of beans every day? They have remarkable effects at longevity and resistant starches and support the growth of good bacteria in the gut. Are you eating at least an ounce or two of nuts and seeds a day, which have dramatic lifespan-enhancing effects? Are you eating at least 3 fresh fruits a day? Are you eating some mushrooms and onions each day, which have protects against cancer? If you're doing those 6 things I just mentioned, and you're having a small amount of animal products in your diet, then you're probably doing good. But when you're eating all the things you're supposed to be eating, there's not that much room to have all the animal products people are eating. And as that portion of your plate gets larger, you don't have room in your stomach or in your appetite to eat all the healthy variety of foods that are so protective and give you that super immunity to prevent cancer anyway. So I'm saying hormonally here, when you eat processed foods like sugar and white flour and white rice and white potato, even too much of that, it spikes up insulin. And insulin is a hormone that promotes fat growth in the body and is proangiogenesis, which means support feeding the fat with more nutrients and oxygen, growth of blood vessels into the fat. When you eat foods like mushrooms and onions and greens and berries, they have anti-angiogenesis factors, which say, no way, Jose, you're not storing and putting fat on my body. Forget the calories in, calories out. It doesn't let fat grow when you eat a lot of these foods because they're angiogenesis inhibiting, and they don't raise insulin significantly enough to promote fat growth. Now, when you eat too much animal products, so we're talking about here about something like a paleo diet, where some of these paleo advocates are advocating people eat 60 to 80% of their diet from animal products. Then you're raising insulin-like growth hormone to high levels. That's growth promoting, fat promoting, angiogenesis promoting, promotes cellular replication, and is cancer promoting. We see that every society that raises animal products to higher levels, and we see more rates of breast cancer, and as they cut it back, we see lower rates. So the point is that yes, the animal products you choose to eat should be those that are cleanest. And unfortunately, the farm-raised fish is probably the most chemically polluted animal product we can eat out of all of them. And obviously people think all fish is good. So it's very hard to get fish that's clean enough in today's polluted world. And obviously we can't get, wild salmon is not available to feed all the masses that want to eat it anyway. There's not that much wild salmon around. But if we could get that cleanly, that would be a preferred source, but it's probably, but nevertheless, the question is how much animal products, and when you get the clean ones, would be permissible. And I'm saying that level is somewhat less than 10% of total calories in your diet, as opposed to the 26% we see that Americans eat today. And certainly much less than Atkins diet, Dukan diet, paleo diet, all these popular diets that appeal to people's love affair with animal products are feeding people too many animal products that can't afford people the opportunity to give them the degree of protection against heart disease, strokes, dementia, and cancer that I'm claiming we can give people.
Well, and Dr. Fuhrman, certainly the point around eating being a zero-sum game is something that really resonates with me, and it is an issue I've had sometimes with, again, if our goal here is eating substances that contain the highest levels of micronutrients and the most healing profiles of macronutrients that are required to support life, and also minimizing the intake of anti-nutrients and things which can cause the body to not be able to utilize nutrition properly. I'm curious about your take on grains, and specifically they are a plant food, but certainly when we talk about getting clean sources of meat can become a challenge. Clean sources of fish can become a challenge. Obviously, clean sources of grains can become a challenge. And I think we all know individuals who do eat predominantly a plant-based diet, but they eat so much starch that they're still taking in sub 3 servings of vegetables per day because, again, they're using that starch to crowd out those more nutrient-dense options. How can we help with that? And the starch isn't clean. It's been genetically modified. It's been, dwarfed and all these kinds of crazy things. How do we help with that?
Right. I call them vejunkitarians. Well, look, I coined a word, and that word is nutritarian. Now, that means a nutritarian means a person who understands that we're in control of our health destiny, that getting disease is not luck, and that we have to aim towards meeting our body's micronutrient needs with both the amount and diversity, and leaving no pegs no unfilled holes, not filled with a peg. In other words, we have to make sure we're not missing anything. We want to have nutritional completeness, and I call that comprehensive micronutrient adequacy. And that means a little more thought so nutritional science has made dramatic exponential advances in recent years. And I'm saying this science has enabled us to support the use of natural foods in a way, in a balanced way, to afford us tremendous opportunity to live longer than ever before in human history. And let's get a whole bunch of people on board on a nutritarian program. And instead, there's so much diversity and differences in the way people are eating. And I'm saying, well, look, there's a lot of, acceptable factors here that anybody can agree with. And the more people we move towards this nutritarian approach, the more we're going to improve the health of our country, lower the cancer rates, lower the heart attack rates, lower healthcare costs, improve our our deficit in our country, reduce the dependency on, so we have so many sick people, there's no way our society with so many sick living, so many of the years of life being ill can be supported. We're too unhealthy. And it puts people in prisons. It takes away their opportunity in life. It holds people in poverty because of poor nutrition affecting the brain, causing aggressive behavior, causing lack of attention and the ability to work. And we're talking here that nutrition is destructive. Poor nutrition is destructive to our society's future and has taken our society down the wrong tubes. So yes, it's good to focus on all this agreement and get people who have these really far out views to pull them back to center. So, because we're all going to benefit from people getting healthier.
Well, and that pulling back to center and focusing on what we agree on and what is almost unarguable. For example, some of the things we've talked about here, like the most nutrient dense plants in the world. That is not, at least I believe, and I think you show with your scoring systems, that's not arguable. You just divide micronutrients, divide by the number of calories, and you see that there are nutrient-dense vegetables and fruits, and that no grain in the world can really touch the nutrient density of clean vegetables and clean fruits. And we have these fibrous, nutrient-rich whole food fats like avocados and cocoa, and we can achieve we can pursue things like wild-caught fish and nutrient-dense clean meats, and that these, in some ways, you can just use math to demonstrate that these are the most nutrient-rich sources available and provide the most of what the human body requires and the least of that which is either optional or detrimental. And it seems like that is the foundation, and that it can certainly be customized, but if we just had that foundation in place, it seems like we would be so much better off.
Well, that's right. The foundation has to be, and I'm making it clear here. I don't put clean caught fish or raised meats as the foundational food. They're not foundational foods because the foundational foods is the vegetables. Because people are already eating those enough meats and they're eating too much of that. They need to cut that back. The foundational food is obviously the plant foods, and that because we're talking here about when people say, I look at the animal products more as condiments. or flavorings or add small additions. But nevertheless, I mean, the point about grains is well taken, and that people eat most of their grain intake as flour. And as you finally grind the grain down to a smaller and smaller particle, it increases its glycemic effect, and that has the body which raises more insulin more. So even whole wheat flour, even whole wheat pastry flour, which is even more grind more finely than whole wheat flour, has an insulin promoting effect in the body. And you wouldn't want to make that food, 11 servings a day, whether the old USDA pyramid used to have it. So as the grain becomes more coarsely ground, we're talking about, let's say, a wheat berry, or that's not grain, or like a steel cut oat as compared to oat flour, or we're talking about so those foods can become an important part of getting calories as well, but they shouldn't form the major source of calories either. Because we want people to have nutritional diversity in their diet. And nutritional diversity is fun. And if we follow a primate around the woods with a long-distance telephoto lens, we'll find that the gorillas and chimpanzees and baboons in the woods go after nutritional diversity. Don't just stay at a banana tree, sit down and eat and gorge themselves for hours and hours. They'll go away to a different type of tree and travel a mile down into the forest, eat something else that they can find. But in any case, I'm saying it's, in some respects, it's simple. And in other respects, let's use modern science to get, because who knew that mushrooms had all these factors that protect against cancer so powerfully? Who knew that a little bit of mushroom a day could be so powerfully protective, and beneficial? I would never have known that. Or that raw onion, when has these organosulfide compounds that are formed when the cell wall's crushed that blow off when you cook it. If you cook it while it's still whole, you could lose those. So we're talking here about using modern science to enable people to eat a healthier diet that wasn't available to our ancestors. And we could do better than we could, even though, of course, we're talking here that getting back to nature, we're destroying our soils, we got to get back to permaculture and not using so many chemicals and getting, people have to grow more of their own food. And we got to get back to, but people do have to learn. And they graduate from elementary school, colleges, professional schools, medical schools, and they know nothing about nutrition. The one most important thing that controls your health, how long you're going to live, and whether you rely on medication, have surgeries, get pancreatitis, get gallstones, kidney stones, reflux, constipation, hemorrhoids, your chest cut open, you living in a nursing home where you can't move, and kidney failure, and can't move in a stroke and put in a wheelchair. All this stuff, your life is dependent on how much you know about nutrition. People know nothing about it. It's the most important thing they could possibly learn, and that's and that's what my work does. I'm want to educate people with all the information they need to make the right choices in their life, to know the information, to know what they need to know to a higher level of integrity and depth. So, because when you do know all the basis here, you do make the right choices. Because the more you know, the easier it is to eat right, because you understand how critical these choices are to your future.
Absolutely. Well, and certainly that foundation of 20. I mean, this is what I do personally. I'm upwards of 15 to 20 servings of non-starchy vegetables per day, because that is just, I personally have seen just such radical health benefits to that. And as you mentioned your work, Dr. Fuhrman, there is no question that when it comes to a therapeutic dose of nutrition, it is impossible to do that without the foundation of your diet, meaning the bulk, the sheer mass of the food you're eating has got to be coming from those nutrient-dense plants. And then certainly I think there is a room for interpretation, and I don't want to focus our podcast on that, but I've yet to see a study done on an individual who is eating nutrient-dense across the board, both from plant and animal foods. I think sometimes a lot of the research that is done, we see tainted foods or low quality foods used, and we conflate things. And again, like you said, the junketarian is no good. And if we have a baseline of the nutrient dense plants, because again, that's the only way we're going to get that therapeutic dose of nutrition. And then, I mean, I think there's even an interesting question to be asked around, do we need to be getting those calories from grains, or should we be focusing more on plant fats like avocados? I mean, it's not hard to get calories from fats, as you know, and there's certainly nutrient-dense fats. So,
the Seventh-day Adventist studies actually tracked this. They compared for many years, and I think it was 17,000 people in the study, where they had compared vegans who did not eat nuts and seeds against vegans who had more natural fat in their diet by including more nuts and seeds. And they found that those who ate nuts and seeds regularly lived about 8 years longer on the average than vegans who ate a low-fat vegan diet without nuts and seeds. And that those who ate some animal products with nuts and seeds actually lived longer than the vegans who did not eat any nuts and seeds. Did you follow that?
Absolutely.
So there is a, what's the word, certain people who think that all fat is bad and that your diet should be as low in fat as possible, and even avocado and nuts and seeds could be completely excluded from a diet, and that will help your heart reverse heart disease better, or help some other thing, help you lose weight better. And in reality, those are myths that are potentially, that put you at more risk of certain diseases by putting your fat that low. On the other hand, to disagree with something you said just now as well, is that the studies that, if you look at all the data from many different studies, that there are quite a numerous amount of essentially very well done studies that show that when animal products increase to a higher level in the diet, you start to see the emergence of heart attacks and cancers that are common in the West. The point I'm making here is those studies are not done on commercial animal products. Those studies that were done in more primitive cultures and rural China and Thailand, and some of these studies from worldwide and primitive cultures that are done, and you could use the China study as an example, are done on people who are using grass-fed or home-raised or natural animals. And as those get too high, we still see the emergence of these diseases. So even though I'm 100% in agreement that our commercial animal products are junk food, that they feed them junk, they feed them, a corn-based diet of GMO corn. They buy spent potato chips and candies from the food manufacturers that have been damaged and can't be packaged for human consumption. They feed them to the animals. They give them antibiotics and hormones. The conventional animal products people are eating is like this. It's disgusting. But I can't believe that people actually put soda in their body either. I can't imagine my whole life taking a glass of chemically sweetened chemicals and throwing it down my throat into the one body you're given, and in one body you have. I just can't figure people out. They'll put anything in their body, But
well, and certainly fascinating with the studies mentioned is also, again, it's the thing. I think it's wonderful to have this focus on the nutritional diversity and nutritional density, because, like, even citing the China study as an example, some people walk away from that work hearing the message, all plant-based foods are good for you and all animal-based foods are bad for you, when the single highest correlation shown in that study was between starchy plants correlating with a higher incidence of heart disease. And of course was a correlation, so it really didn't prove anything. But again, one of the things I really appreciate about your work, Dr. Fuhrman, is that focus on getting away from these polarizing statements and more focusing on the science, which just says eat more of that which the body requires and less of that which is optional or detrimental. And that can come from a diversity of sources.
Right. And of course, when we're looking at studies, we have to, obviously this is my career. I've, dedicated my career to this, and I've probably carefully reviewed more than 10,000. I don't know whether it's closer to 20,000, but certainly more than 10,000 studies on this subject. And I'd have to say the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming, and nutrition shouldn't be that controversial. It's only controversial when people have a predetermined agenda to protect. And then they're going to look to see if they can manipulate the data or find some study that supports their position. When you review everything with a logical and scientific mind, I think that this nutritarian approach, which I'm kind of like advocating and also codifying to a degree, I'm saying to you, well, here's the parameters, what makes for the healthiest diet, and giving people some really careful guidelines. Well, then they can move in certain directions, but saying too far out from this. We want to move in the right direction, not the wrong direction. So, but at this point, I'm saying here that the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming, and in a French court of justice of people who are not, didn't have a predetermined bias or some agenda, we would see that doesn't have to be that the position so polarized.
Absolutely, I think there is so much here to be hopeful and celebrated in these common denominators. And sometimes I just shake my head, because in some ways I think it's human nature to demonize our differences and to focus on why aren't you exactly like me versus, there are these these common threads, which, to be very clear, we can certainly do a lot of things to improve our health and to be robust, where to demonize the absence of perfection can often scare people away from doing anything. So certainly appreciate your work to help people move more towards, and millions of people to move more towards a diet high in that which you need to heal the body, and less of that which is either optional, not required, or frankly detrimental. So what's next for you, Dr. Fuhrman? I mean, you've got a lot of stuff going on. What's the next big thing we can expect from you?
Well, I'm really excited about the opportunities I've had to affect so many people. And as you can imagine, I mean, what a blessing when you have hundreds of people's emails telling you that how much they've reversed their heart disease, off their blood pressure medication, got rid of their diabetes. So, on my End of Diabetes book just came out and actually got to the New York Times bestseller list even the first month. So that's been very exciting. I just filmed this last week a new pledge fundraising show for PBS, not a show, but a new pledge event for PBS. And I'm going to be traveling in June to most of the television stations around the country, being live in the studio with PBS, raising money for their stations. But it gives me the opportunity to get out there with the people and with the public and talk and encourage and motivate them about eating better. So it's really working. So I'm really excited about that. I have the Eat to Live cookbook coming out in September, which is like 180 new recipes that are really gourmet, with a contribution from a lot of world-class chefs that are now nutritarian, who are moving moved at least part of their careers to the nutritarian community. So I'm just working on a new book, of course, and enjoying the work that I do. It's really been an honor, and I'm honored to and blessed to have the opportunity to work with people and to help improve their health. And if you like you or any person, even a person who uses themselves as a personal example, if they lose weight and get healthy, other people ask them how they did it, and they motivate other people. And if you have a good effect on other people and you have goodwill towards them and motivate, and you help other people motivate themselves to a better life, it makes you feel good,
Mm-hmm.
Even if it doesn't have to be 1,000 people, it could be a couple of people. But the point is that we're all in this together, and the more people that enlist and become examples of good health, and they can help spread a positive ray of light to people that see them as a role model too. So all these things have really been exciting for me.
And certainly, Dr. Fuhrman, I love the point you make there. I mean, certainly you're doing important work, and frankly, we all have important work to do. And by feeding our bodies in a way that is just rich in nutrition, that enables us to do a level of important work that we never would be able to do if we didn't have that level of nutritional support. So it really is a virtuous cycle, and I appreciate all the work you've done to help perpetuate and in some ways instigate that cycle. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And how do you like the word nutritarian?
Oh, I do. I like the word nutritarian, and I'm always talking about nutrient density and nutritarian, that which focuses on what you must eat to support health, and making sure you never eat anything that crowds those things out. To me, right, that is on par with the quote from you that I started the show with. So
I think that you kind of just voiced the whole philosophy in that short sentence. You said you eat enough of those things. That's right. So you don't crowd out. That's exactly right. Whatever you just said, that was it.
well, maybe we can jointly put a T-shirt together, and we can. Well, Dr. Fuhrman, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we can have you back on the show. And folks, certainly do check out. There's a plethora of resources out there. The book of Dr. Fuhrman's, that's my personal favorite, is Eat to Live. Just New York Times best-selling dominance, as well as he's got super immunity, he's got End of Diabetes, and you can learn all about all of his great work over at drfuhrman.com, and his last name is spelled Fuhrman. So Dr. Fuhrman, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we can have you back.
Thanks, Jonathan. Enjoyed it too.
Thank you. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. And remember, it's definitely not about starvation. It's about eating smarter and exercising smarter and living better. Talk with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff, like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.